So we'll move on to the second question. It's from Steve Hatton. It's on the cost of the Council's net zero policy, and it's addressed to Mark Hunter.
Thank you. My question relates to your budget plan and the tax burden for your so-called green policies. Your transition to electric vehicles knowingly increases child exploitation in cobalt mines and the risk of extreme fires in Stockport. Last week, financial giants including JP Morgan and BlackRock withdrew from the Climate Action 100 group as it becomes clear to all that fossil fuel is essential for our civilization. Unsold electric cars all around the world, along with your deserted new cycle lanes, both reflect the hard reality which Stockport Council chooses to ignore. In a cult-like belief that carbon dioxide is a threat to life on Earth. Thankfully for humanity, the opposite is true, and scientists outside the global green gravy train continue to say so. A founder and former director of Greenpeace International states that, and I quote, "Carbon dioxide is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth. And it's good that we are putting more into the atmosphere because it was running low. Fact." Last month, your deputy leader claimed to have given me straight answers and proclaimed the importance of peer-reviewed science. These are empty claims. Over 10 months, Stockport Council have refused requests for the scientific evidence behind their carbon dioxide beliefs, which have simply never been scientifically proved, let alone peer-reviewed. The opinions of unelected globalist panels at IPCC don't constitute the hard evidence required by local voters or by science itself. I will happily bring independent climate scientists to this chamber if you finally allow open discussion of real carbon dioxide science with your voters and your councillors. Meanwhile, today, as you seek more tax increases, will you please at least tell voters the cost of your net zero policies? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hatton, for your question. Before I hand over to my colleague, Councillor Mark Roberts, who, as you know, has portfolio responsibilities for this area, can I just say, in answer to your central question, the costs of our green policies are nothing, as but nothing, compared to the cost of doing nothing to tackle climate change. That is the reality of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hatton, for your question. I'm afraid the content has a number of inaccuracies, but when an agenda is being pushed based on conspiracy theories, this can happen quite easily. I thankfully, as an elected representative, am held to a much higher account. And as I have said many times here at Stockport, we will be led by the science, and the scientific consensus resoundingly rejects your narrative. You are entitled to your opinion, Mr. Hatton. However, I think you are wrong, and I struggle to comprehend the reality in which this world outlook makes any sense whatsoever. Regarding your assertions on electric vehicles, I am very proud of the efforts of this administration and council to increase the number of publicly accessible charge points so that it's easier for residents to make a choice and adopt a cleaner and greener technology. However, if you don't want an electric vehicle, it's quite simple. Don't buy one. Child exploitation and modern slavery is wrong across all industry where it occurs, but I'm not aware of any higher prevalence of it in cobalt mines that don't exist in fast fashion and other areas of supply chains. But there's a good chance that the battery in the camera that you're using for your followers also contains that material. I'm really pleased to say that thanks to the commitment to electrify vehicles, institutes like MIT and their researchers have now designed a battery material that could offer a more sustainable way to power electric cars. According to their website, Mr. Mayor, the new lithium-ion battery includes a cathode based on organic materials instead of cobalt or nickel, which is another metal often used in lithium-ion batteries. In a new study, the researchers have shown that this material, which could be produced at a much lower cost than cobalt-containing batteries, can conduct electricity at similar rates to cobalt batteries. The new battery also has comparable storage capacity and can be charged up faster than cobalt batteries. According to Colin Walker, the head of Transport and Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit think tank, all the data shows that EVs are just much, much less likely to set on fire than their petrol equivalent. The many, many fires that you have for petrol or diesel cars just aren't reported. And having looked into it, Mr. Mayor, I'm inclined to agree with that. In Norway, which has the world's highest proportion of electric car sales, there are between 4 and 5 times more fires in petrol and diesel cars. And that's according to the Directorate for Social Security and Emergency Preparedness. The Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency this year found that there were 3.8 fires per 100,000 electric or hybrid cars in 2022, compared with 68 fires per 100,000 cars when taking all fuels into account. Australia's Department of Defence funded an EV fire safety document to look into the question. It found that there was a 0.0012% chance of a passenger electric vehicle battery catching fire, compared with a 0.1 chance for internal combustion car engines. So, hopefully, that gives you some reassurance. On JPM and BlackRock, it is disappointing that they've made the choice, and frankly, investors can decide accordingly. But I gather that Climate Action 100's overall membership has grown to more than 700. I understand with an increase of over 60 just in the last autumn. Now, you can cherry-pick information, but when you do so, you must expect that your arguments can't be taken seriously. Your comment on CO2, I believe, either highlights a lack of understanding around the science or a willful twisting to fit an anti-climate change agenda. I'm really proud that in the coming weeks, this administration will be giving the opportunity to all elected members the chance to become carbon literate through our own fully accredited carbon literacy training. This will ensure that our members have an even deeper knowledge base for scrutinising the work within my portfolio and across this council. I assume the former director of Greenpeace that you mentioned within your question is Patrick Moore. But you don't name him, so I appreciate I am making an assumption. But on Greenpeace's website, they do have a statement, and I'll repeat that so that there isn't any doubt. Patrick Moore often misrepresents himself in the media as an environmental expert, or even an environmentalist, while offering anti-environmental opinions on a wide range of issues and taking a distinctly anti-environmental stance. He also exploits long-gone ties with Greenpeace to sell himself as a speaker and pro-corporate spokesperson, usually taking positions that Greenpeace opposes. They go on to say that Patrick Moore has been a paid spokesperson for a variety of polluting industries for more than 30 years, including the timber, mining, chemical and the aquaculture industries. But most of these industries hired Mr. Moore only after becoming the focus of a Greenpeace campaign to improve their environmental performance. Mr. Moore has now worked for polluters for far longer than he ever worked for Greenpeace. Patrick Moore frequently portrays himself as a founder or co-founder of Greenpeace, and many news outlets have repeated this characterisation. And this is on Greenpeace's website, Mr. Mayor. Although Mr. Moore played a significant role in Greenpeace Canada for several years, he did not found Greenpeace. Phil Coate, Irving Stowe and Jim Boland founded Greenpeace in 1970. Patrick Moore applied for a berth on the Phyllis Cormac in March 1971, after the organisation had already been in existence for a year. A copy of his application letter and Greenpeace's response are available on their website. There is nothing, frankly, independent about the so-called climate scientists that you mention in your question, but it seems that you have made up your mind, and I respectfully disagree with you. I would again encourage you to become carbon literate and understand the science and the reasons for urgency in dealing with the issue of climate change. Next month, Mr Mayor, young people from across the borough will be here to Their call to action is inspiring and well-informed on this engagement, and on this engagement activity, we are leaders in this area, with our approach being used as an example of best practice. And that's something I'm very, very proud of. Climate change has been debated for a long time here at Stockport, contrary to the assertions in the question that there hasn't been. Here at Stockport, we have full council tax relief for those who need it, and I'm really proud that that's something we offer, unlike many of our neighbours across the area. The issue around raising council tax sits squarely with this Conservative. The impact but also more locally within our own society. The cost, as the leader has already said, of doing nothing is significantly higher than the cost of taking action. For that reason, Mr Mayor, we will continue to follow the science. Now is time for action. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
We've woken up and our councils haven't. They're completely brainwashed. They brought in the climate, as we know, the climate literacy training to further embed this ideology within our councils. And the climate literacy training, as you know, and thank goodness for your work on that with David, is that it's a psychological brainwashing operation. Actually, it's awful the way that they use it to infiltrate the councils, and then the councils have to take this training and then pass it on to the people of the town or the city or whatever, wherever it's being rolled out.
If you're wondering what she's referring to, we had a behavioural psychologist go through the carbon literacy training that's being rolled out to councillors, and he confirmed how manipulative it was. We covered that in our video, Vexing CO2. It's the second speech that Karina gave, if you'd like to learn more details.